Here we go. We've got
Hello,
Nick,
hello.
we've got Nick Call. So Nick, I'm going to frame this for you, and then you've got a bunch of satellite dishes wide open. We want to hear what's going on in your world. So it was about a month ago that I was, talking with Ed, and we were just talking about just kind of the state of the union in 2022, like what's going on and what are some of our owners' challenges, yada yada. And then he brought a stat up that I'm kind of like, what? He's like, yeah, I've got an owner, Nick Call, who had 56 seconds show for the week. Actually, he didn't even say 56. He had a shorter number. He ended up texting me after. He goes, no, it was actually 56. And I'm like, was that first showed? Were those first round interviews? And he's like, no, those are second rounds showing. So rough math, that means about 11 seconds per day times 5 days a week would be, 55, 56. So you've got our attention. That's really how I emailed all the owners. I'm like, 56 seconds show. Do I have your attention? So we want to know, like, where are you? What are you doing? I know you and I were communicating, and you certainly are very hands-on and engaged. You're not going to hop on this call and say, oh, Jamie, I don't know. I just outsource all the recruiting to a bunch of different people. I don't know. I'm just the guy who's kind of sitting on the throne and everything's just, moving. No, you're in the trenches and you know what's going on. So I'll pass the baton to you and then potentially start asking you a bunch of questions.
Yeah, for sure. I put together a couple of slides for you guys too, but for those of you guys that I don't know and vice versa, Nick Call, I run my office in Charlotte, North Carolina on AT&T Residential. And yeah, like Jamie, like you said, I'm doing everything myself as far as my recruiting stuff goes. As far as like writing ads and managing my recruiter in-house and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm just gonna dive straight into it if that's cool for you. I've been running my office. I'll be on it's my third year in October. So I feel like I've gotten a solid grasp. I went through kind of ups and downs figuring this all out. So I've got the recruiting aspect figured out now, and things are going well. So now I'm just working on getting the field figured out. So not that I haven't done that before. So let me share my screen for you guys real quick. Let me know if you guys can see this.
Got it?
Still got it?
Yeah, we can see it.
Full screen. Beautiful. Okay, so my mentality with recruiting is that every company everywhere is our competition. And I'll get into that in a little bit here, but there's three big things that I've really been relentlessly attacking over the last, I don't know, you guys are seeing some results that I've been working on for the last year and a half. But I started with this first thing. My relationship with my recruiter has never been better. I think a lot of owners that are in my org are outsourcing recruiting. And so it's very hard to have a solid relationship with the partner in your business that's literally in control of the growth of your company, or a large portion of that control. So I do a lot of things with my recruiter that are bonus focused, or like I've got a lot of coaching conversations I'm having with her on a daily basis. It's a rare day when I'm not listening to her on the phones at least once throughout the day before I hit the field or before I'm hanging out with the guys or whatnot. So I just believe that the better my relationship with my recruiter has gotten, the better her results have been. My recruiter's also never booked less than 20 prelims in a day. So like, she's just like, that's like my job, right? So I've got like a great partner in my business for sure. But we're just really focused on figuring some stuff out together as far as what she needs to do to have better results. We're constantly tweaking as I'm listening to her phone calls, going over objections and stuff that we're getting from candidates. And so my finger's just on the pulse all the time. So I know what I know what quality of candidates we're getting in. And that goes for direct apply peeps. Like the database peeps should be your hand selected. Like, this is the person I want to work with based on your resume, right? So that the quality should always be high on that database. But my second thing, and I'm going to leave time at the end for questions. So I'm going to try and fly through a lot of this stuff. My second thing is simplifying the messaging through the entire funnel has been a massive focus for me too. I've heard all of my mentors tell me like, just make sure that everything lines up. Like A plus B's got to equal C, right? So simplifying that message means before candidates even have contact from my company, anything they're seeing about my company has got to be what they're looking for in a role. So I'm really, really honed in on my social media presence, what's going on social media. I mean, my mom probably hates me sometimes because I'll jump on my social media sites and delete a post and call them up real quick and be like, hey, we need to fix this. And I want it to say this instead, just so it's my voice. So that's what people are going to get when they start in my company. So from pre-contact with those candidates all the way through management and beyond, Azim Gowrie, I don't know if you guys know him. He's a great guy, but he was talking at a conference we were running for assistant managers on AT&T Res in Atlanta about how recruiting never stops, right? And so like I'm learning this concept of like, okay, now I've promoted my first deal out, like let's have some fun with my first deal, and like recruiting just always happening. So it's just everything's simplified. So all of my messaging to my guys, anytime I'm talking to them or hanging out, is like, hey, we're going to do some cool stuff in the future, but it's because we're going to focus on doing all these things. And it's exactly what my ads are saying, is this is what I'm going to teach you when you start in my company. And so like, I'm letting the guys know, like, we're going to do cool things because of the things we said we were going to teach you in that ad. So to build on that really quick too, if you don't know what's in your job, like I was that person that like copy and pasted ads, posted ads, like they were mine. I wasn't stealing stuff, but like I couldn't tell you what was in my ad weekly. So I'm all over what's being said in my ad so that I know what's going on in my candidates, the conversations that my recruiter's having, my guys. They've got to know what's in my ad so that they can interview, or before they interview. So like the messaging is super. And the third thing is as far as increasing the amount of second round interviews we've got, the amount of people that are acting. You've just got to be a student of the game, in my opinion, of your market. So attracting the top talent in your area and everywhere else is going to require you to study what's going on around you, right? And I threw this up here because I think it's going to apply to everything else that I'm about to show you guys. So before I started doing a lot of this stuff, like looking back now, it's almost like I was playing darts with my eyes closed. Like, I don't know if anybody's ever tried to do that before, or looking away from the dartboard, right? Or swinging a golf club, like closing your eyes, you're not going to hit the ball, right? So before I started doing all this stuff, this is kind of how it was. And now I'm like, oh shit, I wish I would have done this all the time before, like, or somebody should have taught me how to do this, right? But I don't think that many people are aware that they have this much control with their recruiting. So every job board has some type of analytics tool. Okay, so this is Indeed's Hiring Insights is what it's called. ZipRecruiter has the same thing. CareerBuilder has the same thing. It's going to be specific to their job board. But this is for my market, for example, right? So my competition score, I could care less about that. We've got the best game in town. But it does show me how many people are actively seeking a job. So this tells you, like, based on what they're seeing, how competitive it is for you to find some candidates or whatever, right? There's also 163,000 plus jobs that are posted just on Indeed in my market. Now, Indeed alone has we'll call it 1.3 million people seeking for a job as of like today. I pulled all this stuff from today, right? So this kind of just like builds my confidence. I show my recruiter this number. I'm like, look how many people are actively seeking for a job. Like, we're in such a massive opportunity area. Like, let's start kicking some ass, right? This job seekers per job is just computed based on how many jobs Indeed has posted currently in your market. It's like, I can find 8 people. Like, I get way more than that, and I'm gonna teach you how. And then this is a really big thing to focus on as far as your SEO management goes. 63% of candidates in my market in Charlotte are using mobile devices. So like I started looking into this stuff, and I was like, okay, how do my job ads, how does my website, all this stuff appear on my phone? Like, how does it look to a candidate, right? None of my stuff was formatted to mobile devices. So I had to switch all that. And I was like, oh, like it was kind of one of those, like, you had the light bulb moment, right? So I started looking into how to fix all that. We got it all sorted out. And then the average salary, you know, we can beat $89 a day, all day, every day. So just gives me a little bit more confidence. And then there's, I mean, some of this stuff is going to be useful, some of it's not. Supposedly there's 35,000 employers seeking employees in Charlotte. The unemployment rate's at 3.6. But what's cool is this section right here. Can you guys see where my cursor is?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So the top search terms by clicks is something that I've been paying a lot of attention to lately. This is what candidates are physically typing in their job search, right? So I know that there's a ton of people looking for warehouse jobs. Ton of people are looking for customer service, and so on and so forth, right? So what I've done is I've utilized a lot of these search terms in my job ads, and the easiest way that I've found to do this is to include a lot of these search terms in, you know, people that have been successful in this role in the past have had warehouse experience, right? And then the algorithm works to where it's going to pop my job ad up anytime somebody searches warehouse. Does that make sense? So then the other thing that I'm doing is this top employers by clicks column. I'm looking for similar type jobs to what my job ad is. So I'm going through each of these. You can, most of the hiring insights tools on all the job boards will allow you to click on these. So what I do is for example, I'll click on Spectrum's the example I've got for the next couple of slides. So I'll click on Spectrum and I'll find the job ad that closely aligns to what I'm looking to recruit. And it just gives me a little bit of a competitive edge. So I guess I'll jump there in a second. Actually, I'll skip ahead. So like what I'll do is I'll skip into, okay, here's Spectrum's job ad for a retail sales specialist, right? And I'll just look and see what their formatting is like, how they're talking to their candidates through their job ads. They actively talk about, it's all about learning and growing, right? What their expectations are, some of the benefits, like they don't come out and say what their benefits are, which is similar to what like most of us aren't going to be offering crazy benefits, right? So I think this is a very sneaky way of getting through to like having candidates at least apply, and then they can explain the opportunity of their business model, right? What's required to get started is a lot of like what we're looking for verbiage, which I think is really cool. And then so I just steal all of this and I put it in my own words and I tweak it to fit me, but I'm just going to take this ad and I'm going to make it better. So that way, when a candidate reads this ad compared to my ad, they're going to hands down apply to my job before theirs, or both, right? And either way, I'm going to contact them first because my recruiter's a badass. Okay. So, and then I know that I've got, roughly 783,000 resumes that are on Indeed. As far as database goes, I've got a pool that I can pull from. I like to see that like reported years of experience on the resumes that they do have, because then I can adjust what I'm saying in my ads to fit either a younger audience or an older audience, depending on what I want to recruit for my office. And then the education level obviously goes hand in hand with that. So the last thing I want to mention on all this stuff, so this is all on one page, obviously on Indeed, and I just had to crop it, but the location, have you guys been in the same issue where you're like, okay, I've got this ad in this area, but I'm not getting a lot of candidates, so I guess it's just a bad area to have an ad or whatever, right? So what this shows is this is telling me what the most common locations are of these job seekers. So if people are looking for jobs in Charlotte, they're most likely in Charlotte or the surrounding areas. So what I'll do is I'll search up some of these other areas or just post an ad in the top 5 spots around Charlotte. And it just gives me more fishing poles in the water, so to speak, so we can pull more fish out of the ocean all at once, right? So Jamie, I tried to keep it short and sweet because I know you guys want to ask some specific questions and whatnot, but
Well, that's great. I mean, just quick observation right off the bat. I mean, I like how much you want to own the recruiting. Like you said, hey, I wish I would have known this, back in 2019, so you just got nerdy. Maybe it was through the pandemic where you're sitting at home and you're like, hey, what's this analytics button here? What does this represent? So obviously you have gotten nerdy, which is why you're doing well. Do you look at this data every day?
I look at how many candidates are coming in every day. But I typically will review all that stuff weekly before I either decide to change an ad, post a new ad, repost an old ad or whatnot, just to make sure that I'm in touch with it's like my hands on the spigot, so to speak, right? So like if you're washing your car, you want to change the direction of the water, you just throw your thumb over the top of the hose nozzle and rock and roll, right?
Right. So you don't hire an ad writer. I'm assuming you write your own ads.
Yeah, so I write all of my own ads, and I think I think there's a lot of great ad writers out there. I know a lot of them. I just prefer to have my hand on the steering wheel at all times as far as that stuff goes, just because it forces me to stay in touch with my recruiting. I've done the leave it and see how it goes, and typically the numbers start to drop and it just doesn't work out. So
got it.
Yeah.
And so are you dealing with a lot of 110s, or do you no, listen, out of those 56 people that showed up, hey, 45 of them were sharp. I mean, what's your batting averages? What do they look like?
Yeah. It honestly, the quality's been great. I think on the front end, so preliminary interviews, I screen pretty heavily. We do video preliminary interviews through HireNami. I know a lot of people use that, or they'll do prelims themselves over Zoom or whatnot. I think either one's fine. But I just screen for what I'm looking for, and like people that are going to fit my company culture. They're going to enjoy their time with us. I'm more importantly going to enjoy my time with them. It just, it helps me keep my company centered around what my core values are and what I'm aiming to do with the company. And, I just expanded 3 months ago. So my outside deal partnered with me, and we're using the same recruiting funnel. So she went from her move crew of 5 to now she's at 24 guys in 3 months. It's not bad results, I don't think so. It's the fastest I've ever seen an office blow up. But
and where are you placing your ads? Is it mostly Indeed, Career Builder, or what are all the platforms you're using?
Yeah, I use Indeed, Career Builder, ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn, and I screwed myself over with Handshake. I applied to every university in the country one afternoon. And they don't like that. But I've heard Handshake is a fantastic job board to use. Just apply to the schools that are around you and not everywhere. But yeah, so those are all my job boards that I'm using, and I'm trying to do a little better with it. But I keep all of my ads within the same target, and then spread it out slowly. So what I mean by that is when I initially post, if I make a change to an ad, I'm going to post that same ad in 4 different fishing spots. Sorry, I use a lot of analogies. But so I want to see how the bait works in each of those areas, and then I'll tweak it to fit the people that are based on the candidates and the feedback from my recruiter. I'll tweak it to move it more from, okay, so if we've got somebody that's just looking for remote work, I'm going to have to tweak that ad that's in that area to, okay, yeah, somebody that's okay with going outside of their home, or that doesn't need that flexibility, right?
I see Kat with a question in the chat. On average, how many applicants is your recruiter working with daily or weekly?
We get, Indeed's my primary job board. And then we get about 160 to 220 ads a week, or candidates a week, direct applies. And then we've really, at first we let that swamp us, and we were having some issues not using database, and we realized that we were obviously not utilizing that resource. So we've kind of tweaked it to where we're qualifying resumes a little bit tighter, and then using about 25% of our influx is going to be database guys or gals.
Got it. And what do you say to the ICL owner? So you're now a promoting owner, so you know what it's like coaching, developing your owner. So what would you say to an owner who has the paradigm of like, well, recruiting's just really tough right now, and there's just not a lot of volume? I mean, obviously you're getting, I was surprised when Ed told me 56 seconds show. I just thought that was an extraordinary number. I don't know many owners hitting that. So let's just say you have an owner who has, let's say, 7 seconds show last week. So what would you say to the owner who's got 7?
Yeah, I mean, how much time have you spent with your recruiter? Like I've fallen into the trap of not spending time with my recruiter. And then I realized that, if I apply the same things I learned in the field to recruiting, it's going to work out. So it's weird. The system works everywhere. But really, it's like I take care, like if a guy is struggling in the field, I'm going to go out and meet my guy in the field and see what's up. So I can give him like, here's the pointers, go in this direction instead of that direction. And magically it starts to work out again. Right. So I've got to do the same thing with my recruiter. So I'm spending some time, like if my recruiter's struggling and only bringing in X amount of people, I'm seeing what her day-to-day is like. So I've spent, entire day sitting next to my recruiter, listening to candidates, listen to her pitch, tweaking, whatever we need to make sure that things are going to be coming in a little bit more smooth. But my job is to make her job, or any recruiter's job, easy, right? Just like my job is to make the field simple for the guys. So that would be my first question is how much time are you spending with your recruiter? Because how much do you really know, what roadblocks she may be hitting? Like we had an issue last year where like texts weren't going through. And so we weren't like getting updates out to candidates. And I was like, all right, so we're going to do some fail safes here. We're going to text, call, and email, and it's all going to be automated. So it's not going to take up too much of your time. But like anytime we see a dip in any of our numbers, we do a test run. So she'll book me through the whole process. I'll go through everything and then just make sure everything's smooth, So it's just like jumping in a car. If you're hearing a weird noise, like you're going to do a little test drive around the block, see what's going on, and then take it to the mechanic to fix some stuff up. So you got to take it to the shop or whatever. And, I look at recruiting the same way as I would, care about my guys in the field. I'm going to care just as much or more about my recruiter in the office, mainly because she, I think, does a better job than I would on the phones. We've competed a little bit, but
Yeah. That's smart doing that little test run. I mean, I remember a time when we're baffled. Why isn't the recruiting happening? And then when we got technical and got nerdy, hundreds of our outbound emails were stuck. I don't even know how to explain it, but the emails didn't come out properly. And we're talking to the tune of hundreds. I'm like, well, no wonder, our recruiting isn't there. We're not communicating with people properly. And it was a technology error. So that's pretty smart to kind of do some little test runs like that to make sure that, okay, it's all going through smooth, the text, the emails, I mean, everything's going through smooth. Hey, what are your thoughts about, texting candidates, calling candidates, emailing? What's the most effective for you?
Sorry, I've got a 12-week-old puppy playing with cords back there. I think I'm never going to know what a candidate prefers, and I prefer to cover all the bases. Like I used to be very strongly opinionated about it. Like, don't text, it's unprofessional, it's weird. just because that's not how I would want to receive communication from a company. And then I kind of just broadened my horizons up a little bit and decided, you know what, let's just knock all three out of the park. So, we text, we call, we leave voicemails to every single candidate, especially if we're extra interested. Because I want to show them that I'm doing more than every other company in my market nationwide than the other companies are, right? Because who doesn't want to feel wanted? I feel like there's a song about that. And then, as far as the emails go, we did a lot of work on our emails actually to make sure that it was very visually appealing. Because nobody likes to get an email that's just full of fluff and junk. And so like we've got pictures in our email. We explain the interview process with my company in the email step by step. And it's pictures of the team, right? So it's like they get to see who they would potentially be working with if we decide to move forward with them throughout the interview process and whatnot. So I think it just keeps people engaged.
Got it. And no right or wrong, but do you prefer interviewing through Zoom or face to face? How are you doing that?
Yeah, so my second round interviews we've been doing on Zoom since COVID happened. And it's driving me nuts because I grew up doing face-to-face interviews and I just really want to see my guys do face-to-face interviews and let them experience that because I think it's different. But for now we've been doing Zoom. So I'm really looking to get back into the face-to-face thing. We're working on some AC stuff at my office space. So as soon as that's knocked out, I don't want to bring in a candidate to a sauna. But as soon as that's knocked out, my game plan is do a little bit of a hybrid. So I really want to bring people in for face-to-face as long as they're in the Charlotte area, but I've got people moving from all over the country. I don't know how it is in you guys' markets, but I've got a ton of people moving down from the Northeast, a ton of people moving from out West. And those candidates, I feel like now that we've figured the Zoom thing out, I think it's a blessing in disguise that COVID taught us all this stuff. But, like I'm going to offer them the ability to do a Zoom interview from wherever they're at. So if they're I've got a couple guys now from Maine and Maryland, we're going to do a Zoom interview, to bridge the gap versus having them jump on a plane and come to the office and spend a bunch of money before they start. And then they start and get negged out because they just spent a bunch of money to fly back and forth and then move down. It just doesn't make sense that way. So, yeah, but I personally prefer in-person interviews mainly because there's been several occurrences where we've done a Zoom interview and then they come in and we meet them for the first time either in the field or in the office and it's like, holy crap, you're a different person.
I didn't notice the blue hair in Zoom.
Yeah, strange.
Yeah. Well, Nick, obviously you're a sharp guy. I really appreciate these words of wisdom. Can you share your email or cell phone with the gang? I know some of these guys have already reached out to you already, but we'd love to keep this dialogue going.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna post it in the chat here, and then if anybody forgets to get it in the chat, I'll see most of you guys in Dallas, I think. So. Boom. Yeah, if there's anything I can do to help you guys out with any of this stuff, if you want me just to look at, what your process is and whatnot, I'm happy to do so. And I've kind of got that end of things figured out. And then if you can scratch my back also and help me out with bringing my guys some crazy sales, mentality approach, I've got it pretty much figured out, but I always appreciate some help.
Yeah, some of these owners have some pretty ridiculous dollar per reps. So, Brendan Fulkerson, what's the average rep in your office making right now?
This week on payroll was $990 average rep pay, and that's 33 selling.
33 selling. I'm assuming,
yeah, I need to get with you.
Yeah, I'm assuming none of those guys are in supplement either.
Yeah, my float is very, very low.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, Nick, anything we can do to help you out, man? We really appreciate everything you brought to the table here today. You got a lot of hamsters running here, and we're going to try to duplicate many of the things you're talking about. But the biggest thing, just like you're hands-on. I mean, you're you're engaged, you're in it, you're dissecting the recruiting. And so, we really appreciate that example that you're setting, Nick. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And guys, like I said, reach out whenever. Gary, I don't know if you're on, but if your results have improved, you should let me know. Oh, I see you. There you are. All right. Thanks, guys.
Okay. See you in Dallas, Nick. Thanks, everybody.
All righty.